about this piece here. It's probably one of the best examples that I have on hand. You can see that the texture of it is pretty consistent throughout. It has a very slight curvature, which is fine because that just kind of fits the hand really well. It's about 1¼ inches wide and about 1½ inches tall. This one is 4 inches, which is just big enough to fill the hand. By the time I put a couple spacers and a guard on here, this one will be a really good size for like a buoy, something like that. You know, a couple leather spacers and then a brass guard. If this piece were, say, a 1/2 inch to 1 inch shorter, then I might could use it on something a little smaller, like this guy. And I guess technically I could put it on here like that and that would be alright, but anyway, something pretty similar to this would be what I would call a really, really ideal piece. I especially like how little pith there is, but I understand that's kind of rare. And this one has this little burr here where a tine was coming out, and that's not a problem. That can be ground off. But what I'm really looking for is something when you put it in your hand, it feels nice and round and kind of hand shaped. If it can go for a right or a left-handed knife, that's better than one that has a little lateral curve to it, because that lateral curve bothers some of my customers, and they won't, you know, they may be a left-handed person and have a piece of horn that curves this way and it doesn't fit their hand. So this would be what I would really be looking for in terms of just quality and size and dimensions and shape. I'm looking for something that is no thinner than 1 inch in width and no thicker than about, excuse me, no thinner than 1 inch, no taller than 1½. And then, you know, for your length, I'm looking at about 3½ to about 5½ inches in length. And the straighter it can be, the better. It's okay to have a little bit of drop in the heel. Let me grab my big box of scrap. And then I've got some stuff like this. And this piece is whitetail. So you can see that fits about the 1 inch minimum diameter, but this piece is so curved that it makes for a really uncomfortable handle. And even down here at the base where it's a little straighter, there's a lateral curve there and another curve here, and so it would be really hard for me to get a really solid handle out of anything other than just the very, very base of this whitetail antler. Which, I mean, that's a pretty big antler. But out of that, I'm looking at one handle down here that I would have a little bit of a stack towards the front. This tine would have to come off. And then once I cut that off, probably here, all of the rest of this horn I can't use for a knife. So all of the rest of that I would just saw off into little, you know, 1.5 inch pieces to use as a fire steel handle for people's little fire starters. And that's the main reason why I said I'm not really interested in paying a lot for just the scrap pieces that can only be used for fire steel, because I get a whole lot of whole antlers like this, and you know, I might get one handle out of this entire antler, and then I have enough to do 15 or 20 fire steels. So, you know, this piece down here, I kind of like the bark, this popcorn stuff. that has a decent feel to it. That requires a little more work on my end because I do have to smooth that out some. And when you see bark like this that's a little bit milder, not as aggressive, that still has a really good texture that people are looking for. And a piece like this I can put on a knife and not have to touch, and that kind of makes my job a little easier to have pieces more akin to that. And then when we get down to little thin pieces like this, these pieces I don't are like the antler tips that are super thin. I don't really use them for anything other than giving to my border collie. So anyway, that's kind of about what I'm looking for, and I'd be looking for, you know, if you look at the cross section here, your thinnest point, I'm looking for about a 1 inch to no more than 1.5. 1 1/4 is about perfect. And then when you look at the height of the piece, like that, because most of these antlers have a little bit of an egg shape, I'm looking at, you know, 1 1/4 to 1.5 inches. And then for length, like this, about 3.5 to 5.5 inches. Hope that helps.